Hi guys,
I'm Mary.
I'm Brittany.
And in today's video, we are going to be talking about Wattpad.
Yes, so we're going to talk about how to become famous on Wattpad. So get lots of reads and get where you want to be.
Yeah.
It's like a motivational video.
Okay, so if you didn't know, we have 2 stories on Wattpad that we've written together.
Well, technically one story. And a
2
sequel.
books.
2 books.
2 books.
Yeah.
We have 1 story, 2 books that we've written together on Wattpad.
Yes.
They're both Harry Styles fan fiction, which
we'll talk about why.
Do what you want with that, okay?
We'll talk about why it's a Harry Styles fan fiction. Our first book is called Butterfly. So that's the original book that we wrote together. Then we made a sequel called Hummingbird. And those are both published on Wattpad. We did those in high school.
So we have those 2, and then I have 2 stories that I've written on my own. My first thing that I ever wrote was a Sons of Anarchy fanfiction. And then I have a story that I'm currently working on that is just like a biker romance novel. It's not fanfiction or anything. My Sons of Anarchy book is called Home is Where the Reaper Is. Yep, creative title.
And your other book?
And my other biker romance novel is called Slow Ride.
We're just gonna tell you like basically the basic information, how many chapters we have for each book, and kind of get into that. And then we'll give you 10 tips and tricks on how to become pretty much at the same level as us, and yeah.
Just tips on how to improve and hopefully get more readers. Oh, and by the way, if you don't know what Wattpad is, it is an app or a website that you can access on your computer or anything where there's like millions and millions of stories and books that anyone can write. So here's the app, and these are mine and our combined stories right here. Butterfly. So this is our first book right there, Butterfly. And it has 38.1K reads right now.
So 38.1 thousand.
Yes. And then Hummingbird, which is the sequel, has significantly less, but it is like still growing, and it has...
It's a lot newer.
It has over 7,000 reads, which is honestly, we're happy with that.
Oh yeah, and it grows every day too.
Yeah. And then my Sons of Anarchy fanfiction, Home is Where the Reaper Is, has over 40,000 reads. And my Slow Ride, it's new. I just started publishing it. It has 730 reads, but...
So altogether, you're looking at somewhere around like, let's say 90,000 reads, right? So, and we're constantly increasing all the time. That's just pretty much because we have a lot of content. So Butterfly has a lot of chapters.
Yeah, 55 chapters for Butterfly.
Yeah. So that's quite a lot because the more chapters you do have, the more reads pile up.
Hummingbird has 25 chapters and an epilogue. My Sons of Anarchy, terrible first story, has 41 chapters. And then my newest book is still ongoing, so
yeah, so
we'll have
go
to
check it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, by the way, I will link everything down below, all 4 books, depending on what your style is to read. If you don't like any of them, that's cool, but if you do want to check them out, they'll be all down below. So let's get into the 10 tips and tricks.
So the first thing that we think is a very important tip, like probably the most important because it is the basis for everything, is have a unique idea.
Yes, come up with something that you think you've never particularly read before, but if it's romance, you know, try to think of a story that's not so, that's more atypical instead of
I mean,
typical.
Obviously there's gonna be things that are like cliche, because what romance isn't cliche?
Of course,
and of course there's things in ours that are not that original and cliche. For example, once 50 Shades of Grey came out, like every single story was like about that. And it was just like so boring because it was like the same thing. Like, so yes,
nobody wants to read the same thing over and over
like,
again.
Yeah, some things might be like the same, but try and put your own twist on it to make it original so that you pique a reader's interest and you make them want to continue reading, whereas make them feel like, okay, like I've read a million stories like this, like I don't care. And
make your characters have their own personalities and have them each be their own unique person. That way when somebody's reading the book, they can
feel like they know that person.
Exactly.
And that it's a real person, not just some person that you're writing about that you made up.
Exactly.
Next, tip 2, good cover.
Yes, Mary spent tons of time.
I remade so many covers.
Yeah,
and
she does our thumbnails. Have a cover that's interesting and fun.
I mean, it can be a little bit difficult if you're not familiar with programs that could like help you out and do it. And like,
Google.
obviously you don't want it to be professional, because I mean, like, we're not professionals.
No,
here.
you're not getting your book isn't published in a store.
But I used Ribbit, which is a website that has some features that you need to pay for, but I've always used it with the free features, and I think that all of our covers have been pretty good for an amateur at like Photoshop. Yeah. And I've seen a lot of people on forums on Wattpad that offer to make people covers.
Yeah, we actually went through a phase where we had a lot of like fans of our book sending us
like fan art. I'd post it like, if you're familiar with Wattpad, you can post like media at the top of every chapter. People can make them for you if you're not into it, but I think a good cover is a great way to draw someone in right away, because I know if I'm shopping for books at a bookstore, the first thing I see is a cover. Tip 3.
So this one is planning where your story is going to go.
Okay, so a lot of writers, I'm sure, would not like this idea, because it's like you're planning the story and you're not like just writing naturally. But I find that I find that it really, really helps to plan where your story is going. We planned Butterfly from the beginning. We always we had a notebook, I still have it somewhere, where we wrote every plan for the chapter. We had like an idea of where we wanted it to go, and then it completely went somewhere else. And so I think planning is really important to know a trajectory of where you want your story to start and to end.
We would plan it out and basically just write a kind of general summary for each chapter. By the time we got to actually writing that chapter, we would sometimes change things, add extra details.
It would definitely change sometimes. Like, I'd be writing it, trying to fit it into that, and I'd be like, no, this is not where the chapter is going. Like,
it's really easy to kind of get lost in the writing.
Just keep writing chapters about mindless things that's not going anywhere. And that's when, you know, like someone like me would get bored in a book and I would stop reading because I'm like, what am I reading towards? 4th tip.
Don't force your writing.
Okay. This is like, I notice it now, especially when I started writing Slow Ride, which is the book I'm still working on right now. We were in the middle of university and I never wrote while we were in school. But I don't even know, like one day I was like in my bed watching TV and I was like, yeah, I just want to start this book right now. And I literally just started it like and wrote when I had inspiration. And I didn't want to feel pressured to have to write something just to keep up with a schedule or to like keep up with readers that were reading my story and wanting more. So I wrote when I wanted to, and that's when your writing is best.
When it would be like an evening, when I had worked all day and I had a chapter to edit or a part to write, I would just be like so not into it and I would sit down and try to do it. And then I was like, you know what, let me leave this for tomorrow morning, even though it's gonna piss Mary off because she wants the book, you know, this chapter to be done or vice versa. She was like, edit, and I'm like, oh, I can't. I'm gonna do it tomorrow morning because you have to do it at the best of your ability. Right now. Don't post until you are ready to post, because once you hit post for that first chapter, you automatically feel that you have a responsibility to continue that schedule, that time.
So our next tip is editing.
Have an editor.
Have an editor. So, okay, the way our style ran between the two of us is I did most of the writing, and so I would write the chapter and I would read it over, and so that was my version of the edit. Then Brittany would read it over, and then I'd read it over again before I posted it, because that was my job. I was in charge of posting, and I'd still find mistakes. And even now, if I go back and read, I'll still find mistakes because
it's so many words. Yeah. And also when you're reading a book, especially when I was editing, I was also, most of my editing wasn't spelling. It was mainly to ensure that I liked where the book was going and kind of how Mary tied it all together. Yeah. So we would come up with the ideas together, but then I didn't see the product until it was the finished product of the chapter. So that my goal was to basically figure out if I liked how it was said and how it was put forward, if I could add any paragraphs.
You need a different pair of eyes. When you're writing something, you read it as if you like say it in your head. So like you'll miss a word that is not the right word there, but because in your head that's what you think you're saying, that's what you see on the paper. Yeah. So you need a different pair of eyes to like see your mistakes.
To catch what you're not seeing.
Yeah. Next tip. We already kind of talked about this, but be consistent.
Yes. Be consistent with yourself and with your readers. So it doesn't matter if you have 1 reader or 100,000 readers. Your readers matter, and they're reading your book because they enjoy you and your story. So, you know, be consistent for yourself so that you feel like you're doing something good for yourself, but also be consistent for them.
I'd recommend though, like reader-wise, I think the most way to gain readers is between 5 and 7 days. Because if you do not update in like a month, people are going to forget about your story. And then when you update, they're going to be like, okay, I don't care, because like whatever, I forgot about that story. So definitely try and keep a consistent updating schedule.
And so the 7th tip, advertising.
This was my job. There are so many ways that you can do this, and honestly, they helped us a lot. So for one example, like we mentioned, our book that we wrote together was a Harry Styles fan fiction. So something that I used to do was I built us a pretty good Twitter following of like over 1,000 people. And how I used to do this was when Harry Styles would tweet something, I would go right away to like all the people that retweeted it right away, and I'd follow like every single one of them. And then I'd tweet out links of our stories with the chapter cover, and they would see it because they'd follow me. So because they're interested in Harry Styles, knowing that like they retweeted his tweet and everything, you're like going to your target audience basically. And you can do that with anything. Like if it's like a story that you think another author, like, so for example, Christina Lauren, really popular romance books. So if you think your story is something that people who read Christina Lauren books would like, you can go and follow them and then advertise your story that way.
Yeah, so use your social media to your best advantage. The 8th tip, interact with your audience. Yes, exactly. So basically this means strictly paying attention to them. So
like I would comment back to, I probably comment back to every single comment we get.
And also, it gives you a sense of what your readers want to see, what they are liking and what they're not liking. Most of our readers, thankfully, our audience was there. Everybody was so nice and so into the book, and it was so nice to read because we would get excited about upcoming chapters, and we would get excited about writing specific chapters. And then when we would get feedback from our readers, we would be really, really happy that they were enjoying what we were giving them.
I mean, it might not seem like a lot for someone to just click a button, but like when you're spending hours and hours on chapters for someone to just vote for you, like it honestly means a lot. This, I feel like, is one of the most important tips that we're going to mention.
Yes.
Be patient. Readers are not going to come right away, okay? Like I said at the beginning of this video, the newest book that I'm writing right now has 700 reads right now. And that is like, to me, I mean, I don't care. Like, it's not about the reads to me. In Wattpad standards, 700 readers is nothing. But I'm patient enough because we've done this 3 times already. Well, I've done this 3 times, she's done this twice. Like, that I know that it takes time. You don't, like, just like YouTube, you're not going to get 1 million subscribers overnight. You know, they build slowly. 10,000 reads.
With it. We
wrote
not
55 chapters.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, so.
We did not care how many reads we had per chapter. No. For a while, by the time we finished the book, we probably only had less than 10,000 reads. It didn't matter to us. All we wanted was to enjoy our book and continue posting, and we had that patience because we knew what we were putting out there. We were confident in what we were putting out there, and we knew that people would come and find the book. Okay, the last tip that we can think of: to write because you love your story and not because you want to become famous. So this has to do with pretty much the last thing we said. But to believe in what you're writing and to do it for you, and because
not just write it because you think people will like it and read it and you'll get lots of reads.
And if you write things that people want to read but you don't love, you're gonna end up with, no offense, a crappy novel that nobody's gonna want to read at the end of the day. If you love your story, other people will love it too.
So that's our 10 tips.
Yes, Wattpad's a really, really great platform. It's something that you can practice your writing with and kind of have fun with it, and just be creative anonymously. And if you've had a dream your whole life of this story in your head and you're like, wow, that would be such a great book, here's your chance. Go on Wattpad, go ahead and start your novel and start writing and post when you're ready, and you will not regret it.
So I think that's all for this video.
Yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.